All right, everybody. Okay, had an awesome day today. Lots of surfing. Got my car back. A lot of good stuff going on for me. Uh, Today, I want to talk about outsourcing and how viable it is in the current international climate to outsource, specifically for web development. But this video will apply to other things. But web development is really what I specialize in. So I have about, I think, to six reasons why I'm kind of against uh, outsourcing your work internationally. I'm not against outsourcing generally speaking, but and you know, this isn't a one size fits all type of perspective, but these are some of the general ideas that I've learned, and hopefully something for you to think about, and hopefully something that will benefit you to kind of think about. The first thing I want to say about outsourcing is that you have to deal with time zone differences. Time zone differences can be pretty tough. If you're sourcing with somebody in Eastern Europe, for example, they're on somewhat of an opposite schedule. A lot of great graphic designers in Eastern Europe that are actually pretty hip to the trends that we're in now, and in some ways ahead, but you have to deal with time zone issues. Um, the second reason why I think it's a little bit dangerous to outsource web development internationally is because it's kind of, there's no really super concise way to say this, but some areas are just definitely the hot spots in certain industries. So for example, if you're in modeling, you're pretty much going to be in Los Angeles and New York. And the same goes with design. It's kind of like Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not cities outside of the United States. Clearly, there are that kind of specialize in that. But the way it works, and this is for me who lived in San Diego for quite some time, even though I'm abroad. I'm not abroad, I'm in Hawaii, but you know, there's a certain language that kind of becomes popular in those areas, and when you're interacting with people, you're having lunch, you're going to coffee, you know, you're dating people in that sphere, you tend to think and talk like the people who are there, and those people are the ones that tend to be kind of on the cutting edge of a certain industry. Design, I would say definitely Los Angeles is a serious hotspot. Same goes for San Francisco, New York. Fashion, for example, Los Angeles, LA. So, say for example, I want to have a designer who's based in South America kind of be as stylish as someone in New York. I'm going to have difficulty with that. Okay, so the second reason is some areas are just kind of the leader in certain industries. The third reason is legal issues and exchange rates. So it's difficult as a designer, a creative entrepreneur, to do work with someone from a different state. Now that's multiplied by like 100 when you're dealing with a different country. You know, you write a contract for somebody who's in a different country, you know, you just better be ready. And then furthermore, what happens if they don't pay you or you don't pay them? Try to go get your money afterwards. If you're dealing with somebody in, you know, someone in South America or something who's in a legal system to which you don't even speak the language of. So that can be a challenge. I personally have gotten burnt before, so that's something to go out to watch out for. And in that same vein, exchange rates are also kind of peculiar because you can book a job at a certain price and then an exchange rate can hit and you can lose a lot of money. And you can gain a lot of money too, but just predictability is very valuable for small businesses especially. So knowing how much money you're going to get and having a clear idea of what the future looks like financially, makes you safe, so that you can make decisions to kind of plan for the future. The fourth reason why I say don't, hire developers abroad is language. Now, putting a website together is already kind of a difficult thing to take this business and conceptualize it and build a sitemap and communicate what needs to be communicated. That is heavily, heavily, heavily increased when the person you're working with, when the dev you're working with doesn't even speak the same language. That's gonna freaking be rough. So, that's just something to think about. If you're trying to communicate with somebody who speaks a different language, I can't even imagine, because I think the hardest part for me personally about being a web developer is being able to kind of convey the ideas and the concepts and the things to watch out for to like a non-developer. And being that is already an incredibly hard thing to do, I can't imagine if I didn't even speak the same language as somebody else. And furthermore, I have actually had clients that speak Spanish because I was in San Diego for so long. So I've worked with several Mexican businesses. And while I was able to kind of do it, it was quite a challenge. They wanted somebody who was kind of more cutting edge stylistically and technology wise. And I was able to kind of give them what they want, but there was a lot of frustration from my end because I couldn't really just tell them what was going on. I had to like have a translator help me or have a friend help me, and that just proved to be very difficult. I'm not going to talk anymore about language since that's a relatively easy one to understand. The fifth one is terminology and culture. When you're working with people from different cultures, the way in which you interact is a little bit tricky. And if you do have the advantage of, understanding these other cultures, then yeah, you can get the work done. But if you don't, it can bring a huge amount of unpredictability. I, for example, found this to be true quite a bit when I would work with Mexican-based developers and designers. The way in which they interact, even if they do speak like perfect English, and many of the Mexican developers I've worked with personally have, but when I would talk to them, just as an example, I'm going to just kind of get into something very kind of anecdotal, if you don't mind. But I remember asking a dev and saying, hey, so when are you going to be done? And I was trying to set like a deadline in order to create a plan for when I could execute what I needed to do on my end. But culturally speaking, at least for the specific Mexican I was talking to, it was very much outside of the like the cultural mentality framework that my colleague was working out of, and they don't tend to think about so much deadlines and when to deliver the work and the work as value. They tend to think more in terms of valuing the client and the relationship between the two people. If you understand that going in and you're aware of that culture, it can actually be very beneficial. And in some ways, it's superior to the way we generally do it in the United States, where we're more like output and work focused, and the deliverables are like God. But just not kind of understanding that culture as much at that point was quite a challenge for me, and it made me not really be able to execute what I needed to do and do my job as well. The sixth thing I think I've seen when I outsourced development abroad is, and this is the last thing I'm going to talk about, is that the work, to be frank, just was not as thorough. And I didn't feel that there was as much T's crossed and I's dotted as there would be with somebody who I knew and had shaken their hand and looked them in the eye and I had a working relationship with. Um, this isn't obviously always the case. There are lots of developers abroad that do a great job, but that was just my experience. And I'm not trying to like down like the international community. I'm just saying that when I hired people from a given country, I didn't feel that I got um, quality work easily. I felt that I had to really follow up with them a lot and spend a lot of my time working with them to kind of get them to kind of come on board with what I was saying. Um, and where here I would hire somebody and literally they would tell me when it's going to be done and they would deliver it and I'd have one set of revisions and then I'd send it back again. With some of my virtual assistants abroad, I've literally had to go back and forth with them dozens of times. So it's just something to think about. I'm really not trying to like say like go America. I'm very much a realist and understand that, you know, working locally with people is going to be a disadvantage in many ways. But I personally have decided to kind of opt out of that for the most part. All right, so that about covers everything I wanted to talk about. I hope you got something out of this video. Still doing the daily videos. If you want to help me out, subscribe, maybe share this video. I think it has a lot of value. And that's about it. I love seeing you guys, and I will talk to you later. See ya.